Hi, my name's Cheyenne, and I'm an outdoor educator at Wild and Immersive. Today, we're going to be heading down to ARMS, or Alouette River Management Society, to speak with our friend Sophie about their Pollinators module. So head on down with us, and we're going to learn some more.
Welcome to the Alouette River Management Society. My name is Sophie Sparrow, and I work here as the Environmental Projects and Communications Coordinator. And today we're going to be talking about pollinators, so bees and butterflies, and how they are so important for us in the springtime. Unfortunately, due to the unforeseen circumstances of COVID-19, we were unable to be in the schools teaching A Bug's Life program. So we're going to bring a little bit to you from behind the scenes of how this would all work before we go into a classroom, and some of the things that we talk about in teaching community programs and classroom programs about pollinators and bugs. So we're going to head over to the bee hive and learn a little bit more about how we collect bees into our observation bee hive. So today we are in our resident bee hive. We usually have quite a few more bees, but due to the current circumstances of COVID-19, our beekeeper has actually taken our bees to her site to take care of them during these times. We do, however, have one of our traditional bee boxes that I will be delving into to show you more up close and personal with the bees. We will talk about our programming that we have here through the Alouette River Management Society. So things are very different at our center right now. As you know, we were unable to do any education this year due to the current circumstances and school closures. We're coming to you virtually to learn more about pollinators this spring. Here is an observation beehive. So the Alouette River Management Society goes into schools and we teach all about the bug's life. Our program is called A Bug's Life program, and we talk about bees and butterflies. And our observation beehive goes into the schools and classrooms to teach kids about how bees communicate, the bee life cycle, and the difference between honeybees and our other mason bees, which are our native bees. So we're going to use this today and show you guys how we set it all up before we come out to the classrooms. So first thing you might ask, or the kids always ask, why are you dressed in a white suit? You look like an astronaut. Or, are you going to paint a building? You look like a painter. Well, we as beekeepers wear white suits because bees are afraid of other predators in black furry suits, and those are our native black or brown bears. Bears love honey and will absolutely destroy a hive if it is not in the proper enclosure. So for us here, we have a chain link enclosure with a chain link roof. Farmers might have electric wire around their bees to keep them safe. So that is why we wear the white suit. It's also a very thick material, so if the bees land on it, they're not gonna get stuck in the crevices and sting you. That's when the bees will sting you, is when they're scared. Always be very calm when we're working with bees and move very slowly. And honeybees are actually very friendly to work with. They're not out to sting you. If they sting you, they actually die. So that's not what they want to do. They want to sting you as a last resort for maintaining their hive or protecting their hive. So if we move slowly, the bees are happy and they will land on you, but as long as you're not doing any jerking or quick motions, they will not sting you. So let's get right into it. We're going to open up this traditional hive by removing the lid. Our beekeeper has been in recently to feed our bees a sugary water substance so that they can make more honey. We do this before flowers come into bloom, before they can actually go and forage for themselves. So we want to make sure that they are fed and the hive is acting strong. Some of the bees are on top. We will remove this secondary lid here. And again, we're moving extremely slow so that we're not scaring the bees. So I'm going to go ahead and take one of the frames out. So how a beehive works is they will fill honey from the inside frames out. So they like to stay in the middle of the beehive. So these are our lady honeybees, and you can see they're busy at work creating honey. They are using the nectar of the flowers to store into these hexagon-shaped cells, and the ones that are capped with wax that the bees actually make themselves, and they cap them, and that's how they store the honey for harder times for them to re-access and use when there maybe isn't many flowers out. So over the winter time. And also see on the other side there's more capped honey. So that's one of our frames. This is when a lot of people ask, well, where's the queen? How can you tell where the queen is? So the queen looks very different. She is quite a lot larger than the other bees, with a larger abdomen, and it's more of a leathery texture that she has. It's very glossy rather than with the hairs on the abdomen there. So we show the kids this picture. Can you point out where the queen is? And it just takes a minute to find her. But you can see right where my finger is there, she looks a lot different, a lot longer, and with a more shiny abdomen or back. So here is another hive with a lot more bees. Again, they like to be in the center. Again, moving very slowly so that they know that they're safe. We're just checking on the health of them. I'm not sure if the camera will pick it up, but you can actually see in those open cells or those open hexagons, you can actually see the honey. The wet cells, that's all honey that they're storing in there. And sometimes you can even see a larva that the queen is laying every single day. That's her only job as a queen, is to lay thousands of eggs every single day to build up the hive. A bee lives for about 6 weeks, so it's a forever changing or revolving door that the queen must upkeep. Now if the queen decides to leave for whatever reason, or flies out of the hive, that's when a swarm can happen. So bees will follow the queen and they'll swarm. So it's important that if we do see the queen, that we put the frames back into the hive. We're just checking on the health. This is what our beekeeper does, is comes in and checks the health of the hive and takes the frames out and makes sure the queen is doing okay and doing her job and laying eggs. But if she were to leave the hive, which she wouldn't if they were healthy, then the bees would also follow her. And like I say, that's when a swarm happens. We did have that actually 2 years ago, and it was extremely loud. We were sitting in our office just over there, and we heard this loud buzzing, and we had no idea what was happening. And we'd come outside, and all of our bees were leaving the hive and forming a swarm in one of the trees behind me. It was one of the most incredible things I've ever seen bees do. We'll put this one in our observation hive so that we can get a better view of it. Okay, so now we are going to move this hive back on top, and we just hover to make sure none of the bees get trapped. Okay, and then we'll put this. So you may have seen these sitting here. These are our life cycle models that we use to teach the children about the bee's life cycle. So this is actually half of a cell, or one of the hexagon frame cells where you could see the bees inputting the honey. These cells for the queen are also used for laying eggs. So there's a certain amount of frames in there that are just strictly for the queen to lay eggs. And you can see the little tiny line there. That's what an egg looks like. The next stage is once the egg hatches and we have a larva that pops out. This also stays within the cell. So the larva stays within the cell. And some of the bees' jobs are to feed the larva within the hive. So they get fed something called a royal jelly, and that helps the larva grow into the next stage. So the next stage is a pupa. This also stays in the cell. The pupa starts to develop legs and eyes, and wings will start to develop, but it stays within the cell, and it is still being fed by the other worker bees. Once it has fully developed, it becomes an adult bee, and it is fully developed with colors and wings. So that is the life cycle of a honeybee. Now, honeybees are not native to British Columbia, so we have to import honeybees from other parts of the world. We have many established honeybee farms in BC to help pollinate our blueberry fields, our cranberry fields, and all of our fruits and vegetable areas. And without a population of bees, we would be in a very rough shape as humans, because they are the key to our food industry. Without bees, we would have a lack of food, and it would be very devastating. The very scary thing are bees are really struggling today and are dying off. And that's due to things like lack of foraging sites, so lack of areas early in the spring where they can forage. Our main signs that it's time for bees to start pollinating are when dandelions are blooming. So when dandelions start showing up in the grass, that's also when the bees start foraging. That's the first sign. And usually for humans, the first sign of dandelions means it's time to cut the grass. That reduces a significant amount of foraging areas for our bees. Another huge concern for our bee populations in British Columbia is the use of herbicides or pesticides. So when we're trying to kill weeds or things that we don't like to see in our garden, bees might land on those areas and die off because it is too strong and will kill them. So these are some things that we are seeing bees be faced with in these more recent years. And it is a huge concern because, like I say, without bees pollinating, we will see a decline in our food production systems. So now we're going to take the bees and we're going to head to a different area where we can undress from our beekeeping suits and talk about some different pollinators that we have here in British Columbia. Hi guys, we're going to be talking a little bit about butterflies, and in particular our native painted lady. Now, painted ladies are found in a variety of places over the world, but we also see them here in British Columbia. Now, a part of our Bugs Life program, when we're in the schools or in a community setting, we actually have live caterpillars or live painted lady caterpillars that we provide as part of our programming. So you can actually get a kit of about a dozen caterpillars for your classroom program, and the class actually raise these caterpillars into butterflies, and then they do a butterfly release. So a part of the program is you get the observation beehive, a dozen caterpillars, and our environmental educator here at ARMS come into your classroom and do an hour to an hour and a half presentation on pollinators. The caterpillars are put into containers. Some are like these and others are larger. And the caterpillar will feed off of this jelly substance, this yellow jelly substance, which is made up of different minerals and vitamins. And they spend their entire life in the container until they cocoon. So once they cocoon, they'll actually, this guy is already starting to get into the position, they'll attach themselves to the lid. And they'll form a J, so they'll hang down and form a J in the container. And once they change and transform into a cocoon, you remove the lid and you put it into a butterfly terrarium where they can hatch out of the cocoon into a butterfly. So that's a little bit of the life cycle here. So we start with the eggs. The eggs form on a leaf and they're usually hanging upside down. They will hatch out of the egg and become a very hungry caterpillar. The caterpillar's only job in life is to eat and eat and eat and eat until it is big enough and have enough nutrients to form a cocoon. Like I mentioned, it will form a cocoon upside down on a leaf and hang as a J. It will completely change its color as it's hanging. And over days, the cocoon will change and eventually a butterfly will emerge. So this year, because we couldn't get into the schools or community groups, we actually modified our programming where we put individual caterpillars like you can see in this container here, and we did an Adopt a Butterfly fundraising campaign. So during the months of April, we had individual families reach out and order a butterfly as part of our fundraising campaign, and they either ordered just the butterfly or they also got a terrarium to raise at home. And so this was a really fun homeschooling way for maybe parents who had never done homeschooling or teachers who were doing virtual Zooms with their classrooms. They would be growing one so that their classroom could see, because we did have hundreds of bookings this spring for this program that got canceled, but teachers were able to provide an opportunity anyways with our Adopt a Butterfly fundraising campaign. And same with those for families. We have completely sold out of our butterflies, so thank you to everyone who was a part of that fundraiser and supported ARMS during these uncertain times. But for those of you who maybe didn't know or want something different, we will be offering a variety of at-home projects for you guys to be hands-on and involved with. So stay tuned to learn more about those programs. For more information on the Alouette River Management Society, you can check out our website at www.alouetteriver.org. You can also check out our Facebook page, the Alouette River Management Society, and that is where we keep our most up-to-date information. If you have any questions at all, feel free to reach out to us. arms@alouetteriver.org is the email you can use. We hope that everyone stays safe and healthy during these times, and we look forward to getting back to being in the classrooms and community to teach about the Alouette watershed. Thank you so much for tuning in. Bye!